Hey, welcome to Gold Scratch. So, where would you rather be on a Sunday morning than at Daryl Waters' dyno service? And so that's what we're doing here Sunday because we just love the dyno engines. So, this engine on the dyno, you may recognize it. It's been a subject of videos before, and it's been on the dyno before. And here's the reason why. This was Mike Kimball's budget build 350. And sometime, I think last summer or so, we dynoed this engine for Mike. And just before we got to the dyno, just the way timing goes, we realized we did a check and we found out even though the cylinder heads had been rebuilt and the cylinder heads had been ported, we had two leaking exhaust valves bad enough that we had 60% leak down. So obviously, we're not going to do great with that number. But we had the dyno scheduled, so we went ahead and did it. And I think we made 352 horsepower. And once again, there's a lot of videos back a few months ago of the build. So the build was fine, but obviously the heads were a problem. Subsequently, Mike sold this engine to a new customer, Roland Cron. And Roland bought a different set of heads for it. And we took the other heads off. Bill Little's got the original heads. Fixing them right now. Losing my voice a little bit, sorry. And so Roland bought a set of heads off Marketplace, and so we did a video about that because I think we called it Marketplace Scam. And there's a whole bunch of things. These heads are supposed to be 64cc. They're supposed to have different valve springs in them. The one thing that was true, it said stainless steel valves. It did have that. It had no valve seals in it at all. And so had we used those heads without checking them out, we would have had a pretty, not a good result. So I took them apart, checked them, we made a video on all the things we found wrong and right with them. And so we put those heads on this engine now. So we made 352 horsepower, once again with the stock heads. Now the World product heads are a replacement for the original so-called fuel injection, I think 461 castings. And so these heads have 202 valves. The original heads only had the 1 and 15/16 valves. They were the heads that would come on at 300 horse 350 in 1970. So they should be a little bit better anyways. And leak down numbers, we checked those heads out now. We fixed everything that's wrong with them. So the numbers should be pretty decent. So we're going to make some polls here today and see what the result was. So keep watching. Okay, we made a couple pulls, not very good. This is Roland's carburetor, and we're pulling way more fuel in the front barrel than the back. It's a vacuum secondary carburetor. Not sure what's going on with it, but we're going to put a double pumper on it. Doesn't have to be bigger, but the secondary is not doing their job right now, so lesson learned, I guess. If you don't dyno, you don't know. If you just put this in the car, Roland would probably be pretty disappointed with it. So let's see if it does better next time. And we made less than 300. We made less than we made with the other heads. So that obviously is not desirable. So let's see what happens next. Where's that paper towel going? Oh, there it is. Okay, we're back. So, not a good day at Gold's Grass so far. We changed the carburetor. We put a 750 annular booster carburetor on it. Yes, it's over carbureted for this motor, but we just know this carburetor works good. On the initial run, we had a vacuum secondary carburetor, and we weren't getting much flow through the secondary side at all. So we wanted to go to a double pumper, and they always work better on the dyno. But so far, we've only made 342 horsepower and 393 torque, which is less than we made with the Chevrolet heads. And the only change really to this engine since we dynoed it before is we changed the heads. So whether that means the World Products heads don't work as good as the original heads we had or not, we don't know yet. We haven't moved timing yet. We're started at 36 degrees. So we're going to start working the timing and see if that's going to help. See what happens next. Okay, we tried the 750 double pumper HP carburetor with the annular boosters and all that, but it's way too big for this engine by Daryl's estimate. So we are taking it off. So what we're going to do next, I have a 650 double pumper that was on my Z28 when I bought it back almost 10 years ago, and it had been on there sitting in a garage for 20 years. It was on the engine in 1972, so it's older than almost everybody here. And we're going to see how well it works, because there's a whole bunch of hype out there about you need the latest technology, and Holley carburetors have improved so much. Well, we'll find out. So you'll see what happens with it. So. You got the nuts on the other side or not? No. Yeah.
Hey, Al, you're older than that. I'm close.
Huh?
You're older than that.
Yeah, I'm definitely older because I owned it. So when it was new, right? This was on a 396 actually that was in my Z28 when I bought it back. So it had an L78 396 in it. And the very first video I made was for the sole purpose of selling that L78 396. So that was 2015. We're getting frustrated. We haven't made much progress. My carburetor made, I think, a couple horsepower less than Daryl's. So I didn't prove anything there. But we have a 1-inch spacer on it, which basically makes the dual plane manifold think it's a single plane manifold. So we're going to try that first just to get the carburetor issues out of the way. And then regardless of what happens, we're going to start moving the timing. We started off at 36 degrees. We haven't touched it since we started. So obviously there may be an opportunity there. But so far, we're not too happy. As we're at right now, we made more power with the Chevrolet heads than with the Dart heads. So not a big difference, but not better, that's for sure. So, okay, we're taking the spacer off. As I mentioned, we started with it because we thought it might help. Sometimes it does. Doesn't always. Basically, the spacer makes the two-plane manifold think it's a one-plane. And based on the results we got, it didn't like it. So we're changing it back. You got to keep changing until you get the result you want, right? Okay, let's see what happens. Add some more? just made a pull. We've changed the timing. We started at 36 degrees and we've played around. We've had 3 different carburetors, spacer on, spacer off, and pretty frustrating so far. We're not getting the result we wanted. So I took the timing back to 32 degrees, and that's the best result so far. 346 horsepower and 407 foot-pounds of torque. Now let's cover something off where we're at this point. We're not done yet, but we changed the heads. The heads had Chevrolet heads that Mike had ported. We had some leak down problems in the original heads. These are World Products heads. And we fixed everything that was wrong with them. Put seals in them, etc. But the heads do have 67 cc's of combustion chamber volume. The other one's at 64. So we've lost a couple points of compression. We made 352 horsepower with the other heads. So you be the judge whether those factors make that much difference or not. We're all learning. We're going to do some more stuff. We haven't jetted this carburetor. I've mentioned already this carburetor is old as dirt. It's one I keep around for starting up engines. It's more than 50 years old, and it's given us the best results so far. But the biggest change really we've got is by changing the timing from 36 to 32 degrees. And that's where we're at right now. We may make some more changes with that.
We ran this and we dropped the timing down. We got a bunch more power out of it, which we're happy to finally see. And we was looking at the fuel, or the brake specific fuel consumption, and the numbers are a little bit higher than what I'd like to see. I'd like to see about 0.45 up in here. To brought up the averages, I separate the 4 barrels. I think I've said before. Set them up like 2 barrels. So the front of the carburetor is fuel A, and the back of the carburetor is fuel B. And I can see on the averages that the front of the carburetor is using 68 pounds and the back 62. So it's more fuel in the front and the back. We want to lean it out, so I'm going to change the jet to drop it down. They had 67s in it. I'm going to drop it down to 65s and see if we can squeeze a little more horsepower out of this thing. Stay with us and we'll let you know how it turns out.
Pounds of fuel per horsepower hour. So if you watch my video about Waddell Wilson in the 1970s, that was 100% how they dynoed engines. They didn't even look at air-fuel ratio. All they could measure was pounds of fuel per horsepower hour, and it was a fairly crude way they measured it. And as Daryl said, 450 is a pretty good number, right, Daryl?
Yeah, that's
0.450.
Yeah.
So it takes 0.450 pounds of fuel to make 1 horsepower for 1 hour. And at a wide open throttle. And so what does that mean? So that's the number we kind of aim at. Apparently in NASCAR engines, for example, because fuel economy is important, they're under 4.4. They're like 0.38 or 0.37, something like that.
Yeah, for sure they are.
Okay, we're
It's
running
an
on a
efficiency.
residential lean though, right?
Yeah,
So,
but it's an efficiency number
right.
as well, right? So,
yeah, it's the efficiency of your engine. How much?
yeah.
If it was an industrial engine, that would be probably the most important metric. But question was in one of the last videos, why are you not looking at air-fuel ratio more? We are, but
Yeah.
pounds of fuel per horsepower hour too.
On this dyno, because it is an older version, we don't have oxygen sensors, so you're not actually getting a true reading of what the air-fuel ratio is from the exhaust. It's a calculated air-fuel ratio. It measures the amount of air
fuel
going
in
through
there,
it, and it measures the amount of air going through and the amount of fuel going through it, and it calculates it. So it's, I don't 100% go with that, just because if it was an oxygen sensor, then definitely I would use the O2 sensor over the brake
But
specific.
brake specific fuel consumption always works, right?
I've always used it and it's always been accurate.
So
Yeah.
he's always got good results doing that. So. Okay, part of the process always is having Daryl look at the spark plugs and sort of read what's going on, so I'll let him tell you what he's found.
A lot of people, when they look at a spark plug, I've seen it numerous times, they just look at it at the top here, and that's not where you read a spark plug. You look at the side electrode and make sure that it's not turning purple or anything all the way down. Just about to the bend is where you want any color change. But to read a spark plug properly is porcelain, where it goes down into the bottom of the plug, where it bells out and meets the metal. That's where you want to read the spark plug. And you want to like a nice tan color, like cardboard style color. And this one is showing me that it's lean. But does that make sense? Because we just leaned it out and we lost a bunch of power, so I think I leaned it out too much. So we're going to try and richen it back up and see if we can get our power back.
Okay, we're back. We're going to close off. So, not every day at Gold's Garage is a good day, and not every day at Daryl Whiter's Dyno is a good day. We had lots of frustration today, and here's why. I'll let Daryl explain it. We're making good power. This engine before, when it was Mike Kimball's budget build, made 352. We now have World Products heads on it. That's been the subject of another video. And we thought it would be better. It's got 202 valves, a little bit bigger combustion chamber volume, so we lost a little bit of compression. But it's got bigger valves, and it's a more modern head. It's basically a knockoff of a 461 fuel injected head. And we're a little bit less. So I'll let Daryl tell you why. Go ahead, Daryl.
Well, last time the engine was here with the other heads on it, we got maximum horsepower at 5,700, and we kept running this today, and we had a little glitch at 5,300 every time, and the horsepower would drop off. If you can see by the graph we got here, 5,300 drops right off. We originally thought it was an ignition issue. We already ruled carburetors out because Roland's carburetor, the vacuum secondaries, there's something wrong with it. It needs to be rebuilt. They're not opening. So we put my 750 on it because Alan had his 650 in the truck. He says, "Oh, I'll just throw mine on it so that we don't have to walk out to the truck." It was too big. So Alan went and got his 650, put that on there, got the carburetor sizing proper, jetting's proper on it now. And we still had that drop off at 5,300, so I had a brand new distributor. We thought, well, we'll try it, it's easy. Threw another distributor in it, and does the same thing, so we come to the conclusion that we have valve flow. So it does it at the same RPM every time, so we're going to end up having to either pull the heads off. Well, you don't even have to pull the heads off, but take the springs off, either put new springs on it with better seat pressure, or shim these ones so that we can get some more RPM out of it. We're already making 346 horsepower at 5,300, where Mike's engine before this, it made 352 at 5,700. So we're quite confident that once we get valve springs in there so we can rev it up more, we're probably going to surpass what Mike had before, which was the goal with these world heads. And it's not a problem with the heads themselves because they're a used set of cylinder heads. So going by what the seller said this valve springs were, they're obviously not as good as what they thought they were. So once we get the valve spring issue sorted out, I'm sure we're going to see more than 352 horsepower.
I did take a couple of springs out because I did put seals in this engine, so I basically had all the springs out. I put a couple of them on my machine at home, my tester, and I did get 100 pounds or a little bit more. There's actually a video about that. So pretty surprised. Usually that's enough to carry 55 or 5,700 RPM, but obviously either the harmonics of those springs don't work with this cam or whatever, but it's pretty evident we got pretty major. And you can hear it on the dyno when we're revving. It just goes, at the end, you can just hear it falling off. It's pretty audible. And as Daryl said, we've got 3 carburetors and 2 distributors. I've had the valve covers off, checked all the valves, temperature on the headers, all that stuff's good. So we've kind of narrowed it down. It's got to be valve springs floating. So
Anything else, Daryl?
Just make sure you like and subscribe.
Oh, thanks, Daryl. Daryl's my mother at work, so he takes care
I've
of
been
him. So
keeping an eye on him today all day.
he's got to keep his eye on him.
It's Sunday,
so-
we don't want to be doing too
Yeah,
much on
so,
Sunday, so.
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, like and subscribe. You know, we always want that. We're doing pretty good. And we show the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today wasn't a very fun day, but we're showing you what the real life
Well, we
of
still
it
had
is.
fun.
Yeah, we still had fun along the way, but we did a lot of things today trying to find this ghost, but we kind of narrowed it down. It must be valve float. So thank you for watching Gold Scratch.